Now, I'm even more excited, or just as excited, I should say, to bring on my good friend, Steve Mindel. Me and Steve go back a long time. He is just a wonderful, wonderful person, very sharing. Again, running this big law firm, 20 attorneys in Los Angeles doing divorce law. Just a sweet, sweet guy. If you ever needed something, this is the guy that you want. He's also a professional chef. And I mean, just an amazing guy to meet. And I wanted to bring him on to talk about the family law aspect of this. And I don't want to be a downer. I'm really worried even talking about this, but this conservatorship case is going to end. And when it does, she may have a family law dispute, a custody dispute with KFED. And I'm really worried about that, and I want to bring in some perspective. So, Steve, let's say this conservatorship ends today or whenever it ends. The court has released her from these restrictions. She's a free person that she should have been all along. And now there's a dispute over custody. She maybe wants to go with equal time, which I don't believe she has equal time right now. She wants to go to equal time, let's say. And now KFED and his lawyer, Mark Kaplan, are going to probably say, we want an evaluation. As a matter of fact, Mark Kaplan's already said, I want an evaluation, or my client's going to want an evaluation if the conservatorship ends. How do you kind of see that playing out in family court?
So, Chris, it's going to be a really interesting dynamic, right? Because momentum is key. So right now, if the conservatorship is abandoned or dismissed, you would think that Britney Spears suddenly has momentum, and KFED's got to be concerned about that momentum. So how does he slow the momentum down? Well, if this was a basketball game, we'd just call a timeout. So KFED's going to want to call a timeout. How do you call a timeout? Oh, I need things to be done. I want a court hearing. I want a trial. I want evaluations, everything to slow the process down. So, but on the other hand, the court's going to look at this and go, well, right now the timeshare is roughly 70-30. It's been reported. Most people believe that the timeshare is roughly 70-30 between them. Britney is in that really great position of being able to afford to have a lot of staff around her. So the court's not so concerned that she'll be all alone with the children. And then lastly, the children now are much older. They're in their teens. And children that are in their teens are good as reporters. So there's a lot of positive things going on for Britney. Maybe she gets to avoid this, because you bet Britney's attorneys are going to be screaming, Your Honor, they're calling a timeout. They're slowing the process down. We need to speed it up. This is ridiculous. This woman's been essentially in a bubble for the last 12 years. So I don't know. It's a good question and a good close call.
About the impact of a custody case, because this is your world. You deal with this as I do, unfortunately, every day. It's kind of a sad, miserable job in a way, but this is what we do, custody disputes. And you've represented celebrities, you've represented people with nothing in fights over their kids. And is it any different, first of all, let me ask you, any different for a celebrity going through a custody case than a non-celebrity, or parents, or are there differences between the two? And what impact does this have on a person psychologically when they're going through a court case fighting over the right to see their kids?
So the celebrity issue is really important in this case. It's funny because you think, oh, celebrities are supposed to be normal people. And judges say when we deal with celebrity cases, we deal with them as normal people. But this case is way different because when KFED stands up and says, I want a timeout, I want a child custody evaluation, I want to slow the process down. A judge has to make a decision. If something happens that's negative, do I want to be the judge that's on the front page of the Los Angeles Times for having made a mistake? And so that's why the celebrity issue comes into play. On the other hand, because she is a celebrity, the whole issue of the probate matter has gotten an incredible amount of publicity. So the judge is going to come into this case up to speed on the probate matter and maybe saying to him or herself, I don't think that I'm going to slow this down. I think Britney's been slowed down long enough. She's got momentum. The children are of sufficient age to be reporters, and Britney can hire sufficient staff to make sure nothing happens negatively to these children. And then remember, it's reported right now that she's a 70-30 split, so she's got her children a lot of the time, and that time has been reported to be unsupervised.
That's one of the other aspects of this story that's odd to me, is that it's been reported that when 13 years ago, Britney was having a crisis because she was being hounded by paparazzi. She was in this custody dispute with K-Fed. She had given birth and dealing with all that. Understandably, this would break anybody. And she apparently was told that in some kind of intervention, that if she submitted to a conservatorship, that it could make her custody case go better, that K-Fed might ask for full custody unless she had a conservatorship. And to me, as a divorce lawyer, doesn't make sense, because if a parent has psychological problems or personal problems, we see that in divorce court all the time. Family judges deal with that all the time. And it really doesn't matter unless it affects the children. So there has to be a connection between whatever the parent's capacity is, parenting capacity, the ability to be a good and loving parent or not, on the children. And if there are problems there, we could say, hey, go take some parenting classes, or hey, we could warn them, if you don't stop this, we're gonna maybe have to take some of your time away. Or if it's really bad, we can put a monitor in place, meaning that the parent would continue seeing their child all the time, but they would have somebody watching and observing and reporting back to the court, just as a protection for the kids. And we see reunification in dependency court, people who have abused their kids. I'm talking horrible stuff, burning their kids, sexually assaulting them. Dependency court, they reunify those parents with the child. Britney did nothing. And so I don't see where she would need a conservatorship to help a custody case. Does that make any sense to you?
So the big question that we always come up with, Chris, you come up with it all the time, I come up with it all the time. And let's use an example that we can all deal with, and we can just see it because it's big and in front of us. So your client comes in, they may have an alcohol issue, they may have gotten a DUI, drunk driving. And now all of a sudden the question is, okay, we're going to have a hearing on child custody, and you know that drunk driving is going to come into play. So do you do the following? Do you enroll the person, have them start going to AA, get a sponsor, maybe go through a detox program, essentially admitting that there's an alcohol issue? Or do you take the other play, which is just absolute flat denial? There's no alcohol issue, therefore we're not in AA, therefore we're not going to go through detox, we're not going to do anything. When you take the play that there's no problem, you're betting the farm. The judge can only go one direction. If the judge finds that you have a problem and you're not addressing the issue, then the judge is going to probably give you restricted monitored visitation. If you take the other play, which is the safe play, then you may have to rebuild your custodial time with your children. So in Britney's case, they were faced with that same dilemma. Do they go through the conservatorship? Do they admit that there are psychological issues and then take the conservative approach and then try to come out of it at a relatively short period of time? Unfortunately for Britney's situation, it was 13 years. Now, it's reported that Britney has unsupervised visitation with the children now, and it's probably a third of the time. So that's kind of a judicial call. That could have happened whether or not Britney was the primary parent or not the primary parent. And the reason why is because of her travel schedule. Her travel schedule may have made it so she shouldn't be the primary custodial parent when the children were younger, when they were 1, 2, 3, 4. So at this point in time, what's going to happen is the judge is going to take an overall view, and he or she will look at the situation, and I think you're going to see the judge dismiss the issues of the mental health issues and look at the age of the children. Are they reporters? look at who's going to be around staffing, and they're going to look at her current parenting plan and how effective she is in the current parenting plan. If Britney's lucky, she's going to avoid the child custody evaluation and the timeout that KFED is going to try to call. And if she's unlucky, she's just going to be in another court battle. With the children being 14 and 15 years old, the court battle may go on for a year or two more even, which could be unfortunate for her.
Yeah, Steve, I thank you for those comments, and I hope that doesn't happen. I hope that this ends it and that there's not some other legal battle that she has to face. I see no reason for it. Why shouldn't she have equal time? She's an equal parent. And certainly, you know, if she's had all this time and there's no incidents, there would be no reason to even do an evaluation. So I hope that she doesn't have to go through that awful process. So Steve Mindel, really appreciate you being on the show. A good friend, you did me a solid, so I appreciate being on and giving your insight to everyone, and I hope you have a great day.
Thanks, Chris. Always a pleasure.
Now,
anytime.
We're coming